For years, I waited for the right teacher, the right sign, the right moment when someone else would finally fix what was broken in me. Nobody came. I used to think that was the tragedy of my life. I was wrong. It was the beginning of it. Let me show you why. The empty road, locus of control. When I was young, I believed strength would arrive from outside me, a teacher who would hand it over, the way you hand someone a tool. I waited on that road for a long time. What I didn't understand yet is that some things are simply not anyone else's to give. The belief in whether your life is shaped by you or by outside forces is one of the strongest predictors of how well a person copes with hardship. Wait for an external hand, and you hand over the one thing that was always yours, the ability to act. The sinking boat, learned helplessness. A fisherman once told me about the year his boat began taking on water in every storm. At first, he bailed water constantly, afraid, waiting for someone to come tow him to shore. No one ever did. Eventually, he stopped waiting and patched the hull himself. He told me the fear didn't disappear, but somewhere in the repairing, he stopped feeling helpless. When rescue never comes, some give up entirely. Others discover, often by necessity, that they were more capable than the waiting ever let them find out. The weight you were already carrying, self-efficacy. A young woman once told me she felt certain she couldn't handle her situation alone. I asked her what she had already survived to get to this exact conversation. She listed 5 things, without noticing what she'd just proven. Belief in your own capability isn't built by being told you're capable. It's built by noticing, honestly, what you've already gotten through without anyone rescuing you. The evidence was already there. She simply hadn't been asked to look at it. The prayer that went unanswered, post-traumatic growth. I once prayed, quite literally, for someone to appear and remove a burden I was certain I couldn't carry. No one appeared. I carried it anyway, badly at first, and then less badly. Researchers studying people after real crisis found something unexpected. Many who face hardship without rescue don't just survive it. Some come out with a deeper sense of personal strength, closer relationships, and clearer priorities than before. Not because the hardship was good, because carrying it themselves proved something rescue never could have. The teacher who refused to answer, productive struggle. When I was a student, I once brought my teacher a problem I couldn't solve, expecting the answer. He looked at it and simply said, "Sit with it longer." I was furious. I thought he was withholding help. I understand now. Struggle that isn't immediately rescued is often where the actual learning happens. Give the mind too much help too early, and it never builds the muscle to solve the next problem alone. His silence wasn't cruelty. It was the only real gift he could give me. Before we go further, has there been a moment in your life when help never came, and you had to figure it out alone? Drop it in the comments. I read every one, and it shapes what I make next. The man who waited for permission, external validation. Dependency. A merchant once refused to start his own trade for a decade, waiting for someone, a mentor, an investor, anyone, to tell him he was ready. No one ever did, because no one was watching closely enough to grant it. Waiting for outside permission to begin puts your timeline in the hands of people who were never paying attention to you as closely as you assumed. The moment he stopped waiting for someone to say, "Now," he simply began. The storm with no rescuer, resilience and hardiness. During the worst storm I've seen on this mountain, no one came to check on me. The roads were impassable, and I understood, plainly, that whatever happened next was mine alone to handle. Researchers who study resilience under real hardship keep finding 3 ingredients in the people who endure it best. They feel some sense of control over their response, commitment to seeing it through, and they treat the difficulty as a challenge rather than only a threat. None of those 3 require someone else to arrive. The widow's garden, meaning-making after loss. A widow in the village below once told me she expected life to hand her a reason to keep going after her husband died. It never did. Eventually, she planted a garden, not because grief ended, but because she needed something to tend. Meaning is rarely handed to us fully formed. It is something we build, often in the exact conditions where no one is coming to build it for us. The garden didn't erase her loss. It gave her hands something to do while she carried it. The child who learned to swim alone, graded exposure and mastery. A father once told me he almost jumped in to save his son mid-swimming lesson, panicked, certain the boy would fail. He held back. The boy struggled, found his rhythm, and made it to the edge on his own. If he had pulled him out, the boy would have learned that someone always comes. Instead, he learned what his own arms could do. Rescue, given too early or too often, quietly teaches the opposite lesson of what we intend: dependence, not capability. The mountain with no guide, autonomy. The first time I climbed this mountain alone, I expected a guide to appear at some point along the path. None ever did. I reached the top exactly as tired and exactly as capable as I already was. I had simply never been asked to prove it before. A genuine sense of directing your own life is one of the deepest, most consistent sources of real well-being. Not comfort, not rescue. The plain, quiet knowledge that you got yourself here. Nobody is coming to save you. I know how that sentence sounds the first time you hear it, but sit with it a little longer, the way my teacher once made me sit with mine. If no one is coming, then no one else controls whether you rise either. The waiting was never protecting you, it was only delaying you. Put down the waiting, pick up the work. You were always more ready than the waiting let you believe. If this helped, subscribe for more stories like this, and I'll see you in the next one.